Ladies and gentlemen, we are here in the middle of fight week for a fight that I almost was just worried we would never get to this point. We would never see this. And we are finally here. We are 3 days away from the fight, 1 day away from the press conference, 2 days away from weigh-ins. I cannot wait. DDP versus Khamzat is finally going to go down. And I want to make this final video, a final breakdown of the fight, and a final prediction for all of you guys. But I didn't want to just talk myself. I wanted to lean on two sources, two YouTube channels that I watch all the time. And the good thing about them is they're giving different stances. Okay, we're going to start with MMA Joey, and then we're going to move on to MMA Guru. Sorry, I started off on the wrong slide. My bad. Let me go back to the beginning. So we're starting off with MMA Joey. And MMA Joey, that's a YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, make sure to check it out. He's got really good content, really good breakdowns, really good analysis. He knows the fight game very well. And obviously, you guys probably know MMA Guru. Of course, he's become huge in the sport. He is also very well versed in MMA, knows the sport like the back of his hand. So we're going to go through different excerpts from both of their prediction videos. And we're going to talk through essentially the argument that MMA Joey makes for Khamzat Chimaev. We're going to compare and contrast that with what MMA Guru says about why he is picking DDP. And then I'm going to give my final pick at the end. Here we go, guys, for, in my opinion, for sure, the fight of the year when it comes to skill versus skill. These are two fighters that now have developed this crazy aura, this crazy myth behind them of them being virtually unstoppable. And now we are having them go head to head. This is truly bananas, truly bonkers. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. And everything's on the line. It's for the strap. It literally can't be bigger or better than this. All right, let's get into MMA Joey first as he opens up this video with this prediction, talking about what he thinks is going to go down. Check it out.
Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev for the middleweight title. Boys, I am jubilant. I am so excited. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to like this video. Okay, before we even get into the prediction, do it. It takes 2 seconds. It helps the channel. I am going Dricus Du Plessis. No, I'm kidding. Khamzat Chimaev is going to run through Dricus Du Plessis. I told you guys this for months before the Robert Whittaker fight. I said Khamzat is going to buzzsaw through Robert Whittaker with ease. I think we're going to see something similar against Dricus Du Plessis.
All right, so there's his overall take. He's picking Khamzat Chimaev emphatically. He thinks he's going to buzzsaw through him. Now, he actually, to his credit, said the same thing about Robert Whittaker. Actually, most people were picking Robert Whittaker over Khamzat Chimaev. I'm not sure. I think the odds maker still had it in Khamzat's favor. Yeah, actually, they did, because I think if I remember correctly, I bet on that fight. But so again, to MMA Joey's credit, the way that he predicted the Robert Whittaker fight would go is how it went. But anyways, he's predicting something similar for the fight against DDP. I think most people disagree with that to some extent, although a lot of folks are saying that they do believe if it goes in Khamzat's favor, it will end early. Okay, so the next thing that MMA Joey talks about is one of the reasons why he believes Khamzat will win is he claims that DDP is sloppy. Check this out.
Du Plessis is kind of shit. And he just out willpowers these guys. He breaks these dudes. He has crazy heart. But I don't see a way for Dricus to win outside of fluke injury. I'm not seeing it at all. I'm not seeing it. I'm going to do a full breakdown on this fight. So make sure you keep an eye on the channel. I'll just do an individual breakdown for this fight. Dricus can get away with being sloppy when you're primarily striking. Okay, because he's super durable. He has unbelievable willpower. He has good cardio. He can get away with it. Oh, I'm sloppy. Look at me charging forward, throwing these sloppy shots. But where you can't afford to get sloppy is in the BJJ when a dude is snatching up your neck, okay? You can't slop it up to get out of a rear naked choke. You can't tough it out to stay awake when someone is cutting the blood off from your brain. You can't do it, okay? It's just not possible.
I think he makes an interesting point. Laura Sanko also touched upon this when she went back and reviewed the fight against Derek Brunson, some of the positions that DDP got in. She felt as though if it was him fighting Khamzat at that time, Khamzat would have capitalized on those exposures and probably locked in a choke or something like that. So I think he makes an interesting point. Now, you could also counter that and say, hey, the Derek Brunson fight was in 2023, I believe, or 2022. I can't remember. So he may have made improvements since then. He maybe have been working on ways to improve his positions through those scrambles, etc. So we have to bear those in mind. And to say that DDP is crap. I think people were saying that back in the day when he first came onto the scene, but obviously I don't think that's a fair statement now given all that he's done. But yes, his striking does look unorthodox. Sometimes the way that he moves is so atypical that it confuses people and makes people think, wait, maybe there's nothing to this guy. He's proven himself at this point, I do believe, after beating Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland twice, etc. Okay, the next point that MMA Joey makes is talking about Khamzat's cardio. This is essentially what people consider to be his Achilles heel. Hey, if it goes late, it's going to go DDP's way. That's been the general narrative throughout. But this is MMA Joey's take on that perspective.
And Khamzat has proven to me already he has 5-round cardio. Okay. And people are like, Joey, he gassed out in the Kamaru Usman fight, man. He gassed out in the Burns fight. He won the 3rd rounds in both those fights. And look at the output. If you want to say he has an issue, you can say, oh, maybe it's a pacing issue. He still won those 3rd rounds. You cannot compare 3-round fights to 5-round fights when you have to look at the output. Okay. Maybe he would have paced himself more if it was a 5-round fight. But either way, he still won those 3rd rounds and he went to absolute war. I don't think he's going to run into that type of resistance here because he's going to be able to ragdoll Dricus.
Okay, so I want to say a couple of things. Now, MMA Joey mentioned that Khamzat won the 3rd rounds in both those fights. Actually, if I remember correctly on the scorecards, he did win it against Gilbert Burns. I don't think he won the 3rd round on the scorecards, at least against Kamaru Usman. My recollection is he won the 2nd round on one of the judges' scorecards, lost on the other 2. And for the 3rd round, same thing. He won it on one of the judges' scorecards and lost on the other 2. And then with the 10-8 in round 1, he got the decision. So just a quick clarification there. The other thing is Dean Thomas and Laura Sanko talked about this specifically. And I do believe there's merit to this idea that it is a pacing thing more of, oh, his cardio is terrible because he blows his load. That's the way he fights. He fights aggressive. The question is, can he actually change that? Should he change that? I don't know. You know, this is one of the things that Khamzat Chimaev has said in many interviews. Is like, if I see the submission, if I see that I can get the finish in the round 1, I'm going to go for it. So maybe he could, of course, pace himself in such a way so that he'd be able to last beautifully for 5 rounds. But will he? Is he capable turning that switch off, having some restraint when he sees that there's blood in the water, he can go for the kill? I don't know. That's an interesting question. But yes, I do agree as well that he has cardio. I do know he's working with Sam Calavitta. But again, the question remains, if he sees an opening that he wants to capitalize on in round 1 and just goes ham, but Dricus is able to survive, it raises an interesting question. Not because Khamzat necessarily has bad cardio, but anybody who goes all out in a round, they're gonna get tired. It's just how the game goes. It's just the nature of the human body. Okay, the next clip here that shows Joey talking about the fact that, hey, wait a minute, we got to remember that Whittaker fight. And guess what? He took Whittaker down with ease. What's that? What do you think is going to happen with Khamzat Chimaev?
Before that, okay, he runs through Robert Whittaker, but Robert Whittaker, an undersized middleweight, took him down in the very first round with ease. You don't think Khamzat's going to ragdoll him to the ground? Remember the Brunson fight? Remember the Brad Tavares fight? And I know those were a long time ago and Dricus has improved. Listen, there's no amount of improvement from Dricus from those fights that is going to catch up to Khamzat Chimaev, who is the best grappler in the UFC. So if you're banking on a Dricus win, you're like, oh yeah, man, he's got to weather the early storm. Khamzat is not going to fade. And having sloppy jiu-jitsu, there's no weather in the early storm. You're not going to weather that early storm.
All right. So there it is. Is that true? Right? Is there no amount of improvement you can make in terms of shoring up that space to try and improve your grappling defense or whatever it may be? I don't know. But he does make an interesting point. I mean, Khamzat has literally been doing this his entire life. He's been going to wrestling competitions, all that stuff. Now the jiu-jitsu and the striking came later, but it's an interesting perspective. All right, moving on.
He runs through Rob.
Sorry about this. The next point is he talks about this notion that DDP has said in an interview with Shaq MMA, hey, I'm going to shoot more than 2.5 takedowns. I'm going to actually shoot on Khamzat. And I said in a video in response to that, I'm like, Dricus is crazy enough that he actually might do that. So this is MMA Joey saying that, yeah, people are saying, oh, DDP is going to shoot on him. He's going to try and take him down. He's calling BS. And this is why. Check this out.
Right down. You have people saying, yeah, man, Dricus, go out there and prove that you're not scared of his grappling. Shoot a takedown. Mark my fucking words right now. Someone comment the timestamp. Mark my words right now. If Dricus goes out there in the first round and tries to grapple, he will be humiliated for the rest of his career. Because if he shoots a takedown right away, you know what's going to happen? Khamzat's going to latch up a Darce, and the fight's going to be over in under a minute. That's what's going to happen. And he's going to be humiliated. It's going to follow him for the rest of his career. Everyone's going to meme him for the.
I actually do kind of agree. I think that I go back and forth on this, but I do think that that was more talk than anything. I don't think he's going to shoot on him. I think once they get to the ground, I think it's going to be a bad idea. Now, MMA Guru says this later on in the video that he could see him potentially shooting takedowns later on if he can sense that Khamzat is really tired and really exhausted in rounds 4 or rounds 5. Yeah, that I could see. But early on, him shooting a takedown, I don't buy it.
Breakdown. You have.
All right. Next, this is MMA Joey saying, if DDP were to win, this is how it's going to go down. Check this out.
And that's really the only path to victory for Du Plessis, is that Khamzat goes crazy looking for a finish early, isn't able to get it, and then Khamzat gasses himself out, blowing his load, looking for a TKO or looking for a submission that he just can't find. But I think he will find it because his jiu-jitsu is leaps and bounds better than Dricus Du Plessis. I cannot forget when Dricus Du Plessis is fighting Brad Tavares and he's trying these lateral drops up against the fence and he's falling on his back. You think he's improved that? You think he's improved that significantly since then? I don't think so. Khamzat is way better. The only way that Dricus Du Plessis wins this fight is fluke injury. Khamzat injures himself early, or Khamzat looks for a finish so chaotically in the first round that he's completely gassed from there.
And I mean, that is kind of what people think. Hey, DDP needs to survive the storm, survive the first round, survive the second round. Khamzat gets exhausted, and then maybe he can find his way to victory with a combination of his unorthodox striking and very diverse striking, by the way. He throws a multitude of spinning attacks. He's got a crazy roundhouse kick. Every time I see him work that on the pads or even in fights, it just seems like it hits with so much power. So a combination of these different tools, once Khamzat is a little bit tired out. And yeah, I could see it coming together that way as well. Okay, moving on to the next slide. This is his prediction for how the fight goes down. He believes Khamzat is going to win by KO. Check this out.
And that's really the only path to victory for Du Plessis, is that Khamzat goes crazy looking for a finish early, isn't able to get it, and then Khamzat gasses himself out, blowing his load, looking for a TKO or looking for a submission that he just can't find. But I think he will find it because his jiu-jitsu is leaps and bounds better than Dricus Du Plessis. I cannot forget when Dricus Du Plessis is fighting Brad Tavares, and
there's a little bit of an overlap here in the
trying, and that's really
let me jump forward. Oh, I think I got the wrong timestamps there. But anyways, what MMA Joey says in the clip that I meant to pull up there was that he believes he's going to lock in a submission, but he says that he believes DDP will not tap. What's going to happen is he's going to grit it out because DDP is so tough. That's another thing that he says early on as well, is that DDP has tremendous heart. That's part of the reason why he's able to get the victories that he does. So he's going to try and fight through the submission, but eventually he's going to get choked out where he goes unconscious, and that's why he's going to win by KO. Now we're going to switch over to MMA Guru, who has a different perspective, and we're going to compare and contrast these two perspectives at the end. But first, here's a quick clip sharing MMA Guru's thoughts on what's going to go down. Check it out.
Joking. I'm going with Dricus Du Plessis. I've been leaning towards Dricus Du Plessis for the longest time, and I'm not going to let fight week paranoia and insanity and schizophrenia ruin my pick of Dricus Du Plessis.
So I guess there's a lot of people now changing tunes or piping up and saying that they're going with Khamzat, and so maybe he's getting a little nervous about the pick that he's making. But yeah, he's staying strong with DDP. He had DDP on a show. I know they have a relationship. He's been on his channel before. He's about to drop another interview with him later today. So this is what he believes. This is the key to success. He believes, yes, Khamzat's going to shoot. Khamzat's going to get takedowns. It's silly to think that he won't. But the key for DDP is that he will survive round 1. Check this out.
But now let's talk about the aspect of the technical aspect of this matchup. I think Dricus Du Plessis is going to survive round 1, and I think he's going to drag this into a dogfight, and I think he's going to win. Straight up. I think he will be out-grappled in round 1. And I've seen that argument as well on social media. I've seen people saying, look, Brunson took him down. This other guy, and you really think Du Plessis is going to be able to stop his takedowns? It is not about stopping his takedowns. It really is not. It's about not panicking so much you shit your fucking pants when this guy gets a hold of you and actually working a fucking guard game. Dricus Du Plessis has grappled with a Gracie team, submitted the whole fucking squad. I know they were smaller than him, but he's competed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu comp. And we're talking about a way of Jiu-Jitsu. And I know leg locks weren't allowed, but this is when you know how to survive position. Sean Brady survived Craig Jones. I know no leg locks were allowed, and Craig Jones is a leg lock master. I get it. But you can figure out how to survive something a lot easier than you can beat it. You're not going to beat Chimaev's grappling. We're not going to see Dricus running takedowns over and over again on Chimaev, and Chimaev just can't get a takedown. This is crazy. I'm not trying to convince you of that. What I'm trying to convince you is when Chimaev takes down Dricus, he's not going to be paranoidly scrambling to his feet up against the cage, waiting for Chimaev to climb onto his back. I think if Dricus gets taken down by Chimaev, he's going to pull guard and try and elbow him off of his back, block shots, roll for a leg if he needs to, bail on certain positions.
It's an interesting point. You know, another thing that goes into this equation is DDP's mentality. He does seem supremely confident. He does seem to be very steady mentally, emotionally. I mean, we see that in the press conferences as well. So that could lend some credibility to this theory that, hey, he's not going to panic. Maybe like it's almost like I think we kind of saw that in Robert Whittaker's face. This is just a guess, by the way, that he did panic when he was in those scrambles, that it was such a onslaught of grappling and wrestling and all this crazy stuff right out the gate that he was panicking a little bit, and maybe that compromised his ability to think clearly and get into the right position. So maybe DDP will be a lot better there. He will survive the storm. On top of that, he does mention the jiu-jitsu. Now, MMA Joey, contrast with this opinion, he feels that Khamzat's grappling and his jiu-jitsu is leaps and bounds ahead of DDP. I don't really know. I know that there's that video of DDP grappling with all of those BJJ guys back to back to back to back. So maybe he does have quite good BJJ. I mean, this is one of the interesting questions. I don't have the same expertise level as these two, as MMA Joey and MMA Guru. I think their fight analysis and breakdowns are vastly superior to mine. So I'm going to more defer to them, but I think it's an interesting question. The beauty of it is it's all going to be answered on Saturday. Okay, moving on to the next point. Khamzat will strike it first. This is what MMA Guru is predicting how the fight will go. And a lot of times his crazy detailed breakdowns, he hits the nail on the head many times. So this is what he envisions for the beginning of this fight.
I think that everyone expects Chimaev to go out there and immediately shoot a takedown. I think he will strike for about 30 seconds or so. Maybe try and land a big shot here and there. Because I think Chimaev sees the other strikers that he's fought before as very good technical strikers that are going to be hard to KO. I think he could see an option here with Du Plessis where he thinks Du Plessis is very goofy anyway. He is open to be hit by shots.
So there you go. We heard Khabib also think, hey, he should start out striking and then look for an opening for the takedown. I mean, look, even if you go back to the Robert Whittaker fight, he didn't immediately go for the takedown like he did against Kevin Holland. He was striking. He was looking for openings. He saw something. He took the shot. He landed it. He took it from quite far out, by the way. He got it. Boom. And the rest is history. But I do believe that this very well could be what his plan. And maybe it won't be for the first 15, 20 seconds. It could be for the first minute or 2 minutes as he's feeling him out. He could even go for a KO blow, because that's one of the things about Khamzat is he does have KO power, which we saw against Gerald Meerschaert, which was also at middleweight. All right, moving on to the next thing. Here is where MMA Guru thinks that DDP will start to take over. He, like MMA Joey, thinks that the first couple rounds, like most people, will go in Khamzat's favor. But then once they are sweaty, this is what he thinks is going to go down.
He's going to survive the grappling in round one of Khamzat Chimaev, in my opinion. And I think after that, do I think Chimaev will never get a takedown again? No. But once they're sweaty, and once they've been through a couple rounds, and once they've scrapped it out a little bit in the fight, and they've gone back and forth in some scrambles, I think we're going to see Dricus start to take over. Maybe Chimaev gets another takedown in round two. Maybe this time Dricus is back up. I think we're going to see a momentum shift, the likes of which we have not seen in recent UFC history. Late in the second round, towards the third, I think at the end of the second round, you're going to be going, hang on a second. This is getting scrappy. And Chimaev will land on Dricus and maybe do better in the stand-up than you thought. But I think at a certain point, come at the end of round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5, this will turn into a striking match. And if it does, I think Du Plessis can finish him. I think Du Plessis will shoot on him. if it gets later in the fight and they're in round 3 and Chimaev isn't shooting as much anymore and they are trading on the feet, I think Du Plessis will mix it up, mix in a takedown.
You know, this kind of reminds me of that description of Conor versus Khabib in that 3rd round. That's kind of what happened. Khabib almost finished Conor. And then I think Khabib was tired in round 3. Maybe he took it off. Maybe he wanted to prove that he could strike with Conor. Whatever happened, that's the round where we saw a resurgence from Conor actually mixing it up and arguably winning that round. I think most people had him winning round 3. And then, of course, we know what happened in round 4. Khabib came back and got the submission by face crank. Okay, 2 more slides. Here we go. The next thing is he does bring up Sam Calavitta, the cardio coach, the cardio master from TJ Dillashaw. Check out what he has to say here.
I know that Chimaev's been working with Sam Calavitta and he's been working with TJ Dillashaw's special coach that made him have insane cardio. I get that. And that is risky here because it does raise some red flags and it could be green flags for Chimaev if he does miraculously improve his cardio, but I just don't see him getting a finish over Du Plessis. I think Du Plessis is of the level of an Usman or a Gilbert Burns. And I know technically those guys are really good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Burns is very good ADCC this and Usman's very good at wrestling, even though his Jiu-Jitsu is not the best, but he is very good at wrestling and he has survivability. And
all right, so there it goes. He's not really putting too much stock in this extra training that he's been doing with Sam Calavitta. We shall see how effective that proves to be. All right, now here MMA Guru makes this little interesting statement about, hey, if I'm wrong, it's going to look really bad because the way that Chimaev is going to win, just like against Robert Whittaker, is going to look very dominant. People are going to be like, how the heck could you pick DDP? He steamrolled him. Check it out here.
And I know Chimaev's good. And this is going to be one of those predictions where if I'm wrong, I'm the dumbest person ever because the way Chimaev's going to win is by 1st round domination if he does. If he goes out there, immediately subs Du Plessis in the 1st, we're looking at one of the most formidable fighters of all time. And I don't know who it's going to take to beat him. But I don't see that happening. I don't see Chimaev finishing Whittaker and Du Plessis back-to-back in the 1st round easily. No resistance, no scrap, no nothing for a world championship. World championships just typically aren't that easy. I know that Ilia Topuria finished Charles Oliveira, but I think that was a little bit more expected than this matchup. I'm going to go with Du Plessis getting this one done. Something I also want to mention about Whittaker, he was doing well on the ground. Even though he was being out-grappled, he was surviving well, and then his teeth caved in from the rear naked, and he has had that problem, and Du Plessis does not have that fucking problem. I think he'll be able to survive a lot more discomfort if forearm of Chimaev is across his face. More than Whittaker could in that moment where he immediately tapped before the choke was even locked in. I'm going to go.
Right. It's a fair point. We have to acknowledge that there was that element, of course, the pre-existing injury that caused that really, really quick tap from Robert Whittaker. But there it goes. I mean, it is true, right? It's gonna look bizarre for MMA Guru making this pick standing with DDP, because if it goes the other way, it's probably going to look something like that. And people are going to be like, dude, he stood no chance, right? Not necessarily true, but, and we end with this final clip where MMA Guru says, if he really wins, dude, this is going to mean that Chimaev is on a whole nother level if he really wins in a dominant faction. But is he really that good? Hear it from MMA Guru himself.
In a lot of people's GOAT lists, he's way up there. I think if he wins this fight, he's pound for pound number 1. And he's going to get submitted in round 1. Is Chimaev that fucking good? Really? I don't know about that. I don't see it being that consistently easy in this sport, because I know this sport is not consistently easy. It never is. Every time there's a dominant guy, eventually they run into some kind of fucking complication, and Makhachev's going to fucking destroy Volk in round 1. Volk goes up there and fucking gives him trouble in the grappling. A lot of trouble in the grappling in their first fight. It's never easy in this sport. There's never consistently easy wins. And if Chimaev can stop that and make it a trend of consistently easy wins as a champion using his grappling, you got to give it to him. But that's not how this sport works.
There it is. Woo! Right? If he can get it done, what does that say about Chimaev? Conversely, if DDP gets it done, what does that say about DDP? The two are going back to back. I feel like they both present really interesting arguments. And I just want to give this to all of you guys as food for thought as we come to the greatest fight of the year. Now I will weigh in with my final thoughts, my final prediction, with the caveat that Khamzat Chimaev is my favorite fighter. Now, again, it's not like he's my brother. It's not like he's my cousin. It's not like I have a connection to him. So the bias that I have, or the fandom that I have for Chimaev, has evolved over time just from watching his amazing performances. So it's just, and I've watched DDP's amazing performances. It's just born out of that. It's born out of me being a fan, me watching, and me being very, very impressed with what he's done. So there's my little caveat. After hearing everything, after watching everything, I am leaning towards Chimaev. I'm leaning towards that narrative. Again, both make good points. It could go either way. As we mentioned, we could see what MMA Guru is predicting. We could see that happening. But I believe that is going to go the other direction. That's my official pick. Khamzat Chimaev. He's going to get it done. I'm not going to say which round or necessarily how it's going to go down, but I think he's going to get it. Let's go UFC 319. Make sure to hit that like button if you did like this video, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy.